All right, today we are diving deep into the secret language of your gut. Digestion isn't just this passive thing that happens. Nope. It's actually an incredibly active conversation, a whole chemical messaging system running the show behind the scenes. Let's get into it.
So just think about it for a second. You eat a big meal, say a cheeseburger, and then you just go about your day. You're not consciously doing anything, but your body, it just knows what to do. It knows there's protein that needs to be broken down, fat that has to be dealt with, acid that needs managing. So how? Well, it's definitely not magic. It's a seriously sophisticated biological system, all run by some very special chemical messengers. And these messengers, they're called gastrointestinal hormones, or GI hormones for short. They're sent out by these amazing little things called enteroendocrine cells, which are basically tiny sensors just lining your gut. You can think of them as guards, constantly monitoring what's coming in, ready to send out the right orders at a moment's notice.
Okay, so our journey starts in the stomach. As soon as that cheeseburger lands, the first manager on the scene gets a call. Its name is gastrin, and its one big job is to get the acid production line up and running. Now, take a look at this. It really maps out all the key players for us. See, down here in the lower part of the stomach, what's called the antrum, you've got these G cells. They're the ones that make gastrin. That gastrin then travels up to these other cells, the parietal cells, and basically tells them, hey, time to release the acid. And it all happens in this really logical chain reaction. First, the physical stretch of the stomach from the food, plus the arrival of proteins. That's the trigger. That tells the G cells to release gastrin. The gastrin then goes and tells the parietal cells to start pumping out hydrochloric acid. And that acid is what really kicks off the process of breaking down that burger.
But wait a minute, how does the stomach keep from, dissolving itself with all the acid? Well, this right here is the brilliant answer. It's called a negative feedback loop. As soon as the stomach gets acidic enough, the acid itself sends a signal straight back to the G cells, telling them, okay, that's enough, shut it down. It's this perfect self-regulating system, a built-in off switch.
So, once the stomach's done its job, this partially digested food, now this kind of lovely acidic mush called chyme, it moves on into the small intestine. But the environment here needs to be totally different, which means a whole new management team has to take over.
And this new team has two real star players, and each one responds to a very specific trigger. The acid that's pouring in from the stomach, that wakes up a hormone called secretin. At the same time, the fats and proteins from our cheeseburger, they trigger a completely different hormone, cholecystokinin, or CCK, which is way easier to say. Let's start with secretin. If gastrin was our acid production manager, then you can think of secretin as the acid neutralization specialist. Its number one priority is to protect the delicate small intestine from that super powerful stomach acid. And here's exactly how it pulls that off. The acid hits the small intestine, and that triggers special S cells to release secretin. Secretin then sends a message to the pancreas, telling it to release a flood of bicarbonate, which is pretty much nature's own Tums. This stuff neutralizes the acid, the pH level rises back to a safe level, and once that happens, the signal to make more secretin just shuts off. It's another one of those elegant feedback loops. All right, now for our other manager, CCK. Its job is all about coordinating the main event, the heavy-duty breakdown and absorption of fats and proteins. It's the Fat and Protein Digestion Coordinator. Now, CCK's process is just fascinating. It tells the gallbladder, release the bile to handle the fats, and it tells the pancreas, we need enzymes for the proteins. But here's the really cool part. As those fats and proteins start breaking down into smaller pieces, those smaller pieces trigger the release of even more CCK. It's a positive feedback loop, a system that basically says, more, keep going, let's get this job done. But this whole communication network, it's about so much more than just dealing with one meal. These hormones are also in charge of system-wide maintenance, and they're talking to other parts of the body, including, you guessed it, the brain. So, for example, let's meet motilin. In between your meals, it acts like an intestinal housekeeper. It starts this sweeping motion that cleans out any leftover gunk. And then you've got GIP, who I like to call the insulin summoner. It gets a heads up that sugar is coming down the pipe, and it tells the pancreas, hey, get ready, we're gonna need some insulin soon. And this is the real big picture. We're talking about the gut-brain axis. Hormones like CCK don't just work locally in the gut. They send signals all the way up to your brain to say, hey, we're full down here. You can stop eating now. They even control how fast or slow the stomach empties its contents. It is a constant, nonstop conversation between your gut and your head.
So you can see this is a beautiful, finely tuned system. But what happens when the signals get crossed? Or when one of these messengers just starts shouting way too loudly and drowns everyone else out? Well, when that communication fails, it can lead to some serious diseases.
For instance, there's a rare kind of tumor that just churns out way too much gastrin. This leads to something called Zollinger-Ellison syndrome, where the constant overwhelming acid production causes these terrible, severe ulcers. Or another tumor might overproduce a hormone called VIP, causing a condition called a VIPoma, which leads to, well, profuse watery diarrhea. It really just goes to show how critical having the right hormonal balance is.
So I think the big takeaway here is this. Turning that cheeseburger into energy for your body isn't just some simple mechanical grinding process. It's a symphony of chemical communication. It's an elegant, self-regulating system of hormones that are managing everything from your acid levels to your actual feeling of being hungry or full. It really makes you think, doesn't it? We've managed to decode some of this incredibly complex chemical language, but honestly, we're just scratching the surface of the full conversation. You have to wonder, what other secrets about our mood, our immune system, and our overall health is our gut just waiting to tell us?